Did you know there are two seasons for hydrangeas? Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today I'm going to explain what I mean by having two seasons for hydrangeas. We're going to take a walk through my garden. It is mid-July right now, and the hydrangeas are looking fantastic. We're going to show you a lot of gorgeous blooming plants in this garden tour today, and we're going to actually start off here on the side yard, heading to the back, and then we'll finish up in the front to show you how the new Proven Winner annuals are doing that are our samples for 2026. So let's go ahead and take a walk through the garden. The first hydrangea we're going to start off with today is a panicle or a hardy hydrangea called Quickfire. Now, for those of you who are falling in love with this plant right now, I do have to tell you this is a discontinued hydrangea, but Quickfire is one of the very first panicle or hardy hydrangeas to bloom in the hardy hydrangea series. And it's starting off with more of a lacy type of bloom. And then as the summer goes on, this is going to transition to a gorgeous red color. We are located in West Michigan, a zone 6A, and we are fortunate enough that our panicle hydrangeas do go through that transition from the lime to the white to the beautiful fire engine red, and a lot of them cases in the later summer. So that is just a ball of beauty right now. It's over 10 foot tall, probably about 10 foot wide, and just really filling in the side garden nicely. We also have a lot of Bobo hydrangeas, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit because there's a lot more of these as we continue out to the back garden. This is actually one of the only hydrangeas that I have multiples planted in my yard because it is such a favorite of mine due to its compact size. Let's talk about the what is blooming. Check out this gorgeous, incredible blush hydrangea. This is only about 4 to 5 foot tall, but right now it is at least 6 to 8 foot wide. It is a monster in this garden bed right now. This is one we really should and could trim back in the fall because it is just, it's really almost outgrowing its space, but it is so gorgeous that I really don't mind that it's getting that big. I did say cut back in the fall, and that's true. The arborescent or smooth hydrangeas are a hydrangea variety that can be cut back in the fall or the spring because they do bloom off of the new growth. So they're very easy to grow and very reliable as well. Tucked in behind here, which we have a hard time seeing because there's such monstrous beauties in front of them, are the mini mauvette hydrangeas. The mini mauvette, as you can see, is a deeper, richer pink color. And these are only about 3 foot tall. So they're a very compact hydrangea, and just, there's a right size hydrangea for any size garden. So if you have just a small space that you're looking to put a little something in, this mini mauvette is a gorgeous pink blooming hydrangea. Now, these two pinks you're seeing here, they are going to always be pink. They're not the type of hydrangea you can turn to blue or purple. These are true pink blooming hydrangeas, and that is the color you will always see them when they are blooming. Heading around the side towards the back now, we have this gorgeous Sage Hosta. This was probably one of the absolute very first plants we ever planted out in this garden. The garden is about 23 or so years since we first began it. So to kind of give you an idea of how long this landscape has been here, it's been at least 23 years. And obviously we've added to it throughout the years, various different garden beds and different plants. A beautiful daylily there that's, I think that's Red Hot Returns, one of the re-blooming daylilies. In the back there, we have the little Quickfire hydrangea just starting to put on a little bit of color. And it's about 4 foot tall, 4 foot wide. So another fairly compact variety. Now, this was something that was quite a surprise. Now, I knew these canna lilies were here. We planted them probably 10 years ago. They really have not done a whole lot. But this year, they're over 3 foot tall and blooming with these beautiful pink blooms. Remember, I'm a zone 6A. Calla lilies, I think I said canna early. Calla lilies do not usually overwinter here in my zone, but we do have a few that on occasion, they're usually yellow, that will come back. But this one is just absolutely huge. I've never seen this come back and bloom. We've seen leaves in the past, but these blooms are quite a surprise, and I think they're gorgeous. We've got our circle garden there, and it was 2014. I was going through pictures, and I think it was 2014 is the year that we had a giant maple tree that was planted in this garden get blown over by a huge windstorm. That was the second tree we had planted in this location. And I'm sorry, I don't try things 3 times. In my world, 3rd time is not a charm. I learned after 2 that we are done. So we got rid of the big maples and replaced it with a limelight hydrangea. Now this is a standard limelight hydrangea, which what that means is it's a hydrangea that has been trained into tree form. So if we look underneath it here, there's a pretty substantial trunk down there that's holding this whole beautiful plant up. This will be blooming later on in the summer and just be another big ball of beauty. The landscapers were here earlier this week and they did do some trimming. So if you're wondering, what plants can we maybe start trimming this time of year, they did come through and trim the Weigela Monet. They shaped them up and got them kind of nice and tight again. They also came through and trimmed back the bloomerang. This is the dwarf bloomerang, which has been discontinued, but you can do this with your regular bloomerang dark purples as well. They trimmed that back just a little bit, and then it's already pushing, I think it was only last week, and it's already starting to push some new growth. So on that new growth is where we're going to see the repeat blooms come on this lilac. The bloomerang series of lilacs are reblooming, meaning they have their first and most prolific flush of flowers early in the spring, but throughout the summer, they also do put on more flowers. So anytime you can have, lilacs blooming in the summer, those are kind of a rare thing to see, unless of course you have the bloomerang lilacs. Heading under the deck, you can just see this is always filling out so nicely, especially this time of year. Some of the Rudbeckia are starting to bloom, which gives the space a little bit of flower color, but primarily we just have this jam-packed with hostas and hellebore. The hellebore you can see early in the season, also known as Lenten rose, but right now all the hostas are just absolutely covering them up. And I like the hostas. There's also an Aurelia Sun King, which is that lighter green, because it just fills in the space nicely. Like, there's not a lot of summer flowering perennials that I really love. So by putting all this hosta underneath here, it's just adding a lot of color and texture in the forms of whites, greens, and lime greens. Here we have the gorgeous Limetta hydrangeas. This is another compact variety. Typically they only get about 3.5 foot tall, but the ones here are just loving their life, and they're about 3.5, if not almost 4 foot tall. Limetta typically will have a little bit more of a limey color flower before it fully opens to these gorgeous white blooms. It's kind of that perfect size that you can tuck under a window. Obviously you can keep them trimmed down a little bit if you want to open your windows, but just that gorgeous midsummer blooming hydrangea. Now this is a good place for me to go ahead and explain what did I mean when I said there are 2 seasons for hydrangeas. I really don't mean seasons literally. I just mean kind of like 2 waves of color. So the first wave of color comes from these arborescent, also known as smooth hydrangeas. These are going to be the hydrangeas that bloom white and or pink, depending on the variety that you have. Now you can see we've got these gorgeous white ones here, and then off in the distance there is the incredible blush, and that is the pink variety. These varieties bloom off of the new growth, so they can be trimmed in the fall or in the spring, depending on when you get out and trim your garden. They're very reliable because of the blooms coming off of that new growth. So these are the first ones that typically will start blooming here in my garden. Now the next ones are the hardy hydrangeas, or the panicle hydrangeas is another name for them. The panicle hydrangeas typically will start blooming once these arborescent hydrangeas are done. So that's where you have 2 seasons or 2 cycles of blooms. It's a great way if you want to extend your hydrangea series is by planting both the arborescent and the panicle hydrangeas. You'll have hydrangea colors for months. Now the panicle hydrangeas typically start off like a white or a lime green, and depending on where you live, if you're lucky like we are in Michigan, as those white blooms start to age, they age to a gorgeous shade of pink. Some are darker and deeper pink than others, but we get a great transition of color, usually in August, going into September, with our panicle hydrangeas here in Michigan. So I guess the moral of the story is plant various types of or families of hydrangeas so that you can have these gorgeous hydrangea blooms all summer long. Next to the hydrangea, we have another daylily clump here, and this is another one of those returns ones. I think this is Rosy Returns. So this is a reblooming daylily. I do like the reblooming daylilies because that way they're just, I don't know, they're giving more color to their spot in the garden for longer, and I like it when plants bloom longer. Remember I'd mentioned about the calla lily, how we had to have some yellows that did come back. Here's one. And there's a gorgeous yellow flower on it. This one's about 2 foot tall. So I think it's fun. I love surprises in the garden. How about you? We've got some clematis in here. It's the pink mink, kind of just making its way wherever it really wants to. It was larger than the trellis I had going there, so it's just kind of meandering its way on top of plants, finding other trellises, and just creating a beautiful mat of color. In this area of the garden, we put a bunch of cone flowers so that we could have a lot of different cone flower colors. A lot of them that we had planted in here no longer are here, and it's primarily pink. And that's a good place for me to explain to you with cone flowers. So a lot of people will say to me, Heidi, my cone flowers, they're all pink now. I planted all different colors. They're all pink now. They've been in the garden for years. Well, probably what's happened is your oranges, your yellows, your reds, maybe at this point have died off. And you're seeing a lot of pink because those oranges, those yellows, those reds, if they do set seed, which sometimes they do, that seed is going to actually bloom pink. Because echinacea's like mother plant, you might say, or the genetics behind it is pink, because that is the native variety. So if any of your oranges, pinks, yellows, etc. seed themselves, more than likely those seedlings are going to be a pink variety. And that's why a lot of times you'll see pink echinacea maybe in areas where you didn't even plant them, because those seeds just kind of made their way to other places in the garden. Here's another mini mauvette hydrangea. This one here is looking a little sad, and I don't, sometimes you don't know why. You don't know why things don't look excellent all the time. It's getting plenty of water. I'm wondering if it didn't get enough light initially because these lavender are just so big. We are facing the east right now in this garden, so it's possible that it just didn't get enough sun, especially over here on the northeast side of the garden, to put on enough color. Now, I know that's interesting because a lot of people associate hydrangeas with shade. And actually, for most hydrangeas, they do prefer part sun or full sun gardens. The biggest thing is you have to make for sure that you are giving them enough water, because you don't want to see a thirsty hydrangea, because that's a wilty hydrangea. I love my clematis vines, and any opportunity I get to plant them on something to add some vertical color to the garden, I do. Here we have the blue angel, which is the lighter blue one. Also, we've got some pink mink in there. I like pink mink because it's very aggressive. So if you're looking to fill in an area quickly, pink mink is a very vigorous grower and fills in those spots where you may want to add in some vertical color. Here's another purple. I think this is a president. And you can see there is some bug chew going on here. But I really don't do a lot as far as treating for bugs in the garden, because I really want the pollinators to be in the garden. And sometimes you have good bugs with bad bugs when you're, doing gardening. So I guess it depends on what your goal is for your garden. Is your garden to be a perfect, perfect looking place, or is your goal for your garden to be a haven for pollinators and wildlife? Now, don't get me wrong. I will do anything in my power I can to keep the deer and the rabbits off the plants. But it's a little harder to deal with the bugs and not harm other caterpillars like monarchs and black swallowtails and that kind of thing. Here's a huge collection of cone flowers. This is where, again, I grouped a whole bunch of colors together. And you can kind of see over time, this has probably been here for 15 years. There's a few varieties of various colors, but a lot of this is still a lot of pink. Bobo hydrangea. I said earlier there's a lot of Bobos in this garden, and there is, because at the time, Bobo was the most compact panicle hydrangea on the market, and I wanted small. I did not want big shrubs in my garden. Now we're fortunate enough to have the Firelight Tidbit, which only gets 2 foot tall. So these are great for their location, but if I was looking for a shorter variety of hydrangea, Firelight Tidbit is the one I would be planting out in this garden. We have a lot of them out at the greenhouse as well, of the Firelight Tidbit, because as we added in new beds, I thought, you know what, let's put in that more compact hydrangea variety, just because, I don't know, gives me more opportunity to plant other things as well. You can see in this bed, we've got all those white Sunpatiens that are lining it. I love how that white just frames in this garden bed. And if you've watched me for any amount of time, new or old viewers, I love how the white glows in the night. So we were just out here mowing the lawn, and the lawnmower is a little bit big to get in the pathway, so this area didn't get mowed. But one thing I do want to show you as we're walking through here is there is so much milkweed that is coming up in this garden bed. Now, milkweed isn't the only weed coming up here. I mean, there's crabgrass, there's all kinds of other random yuckins going on, but I'm going to go down at a different angle here. Do you see all those little taller sprigs in the grass? That is all milkweed seed. And the reason is because in this bed, we have a lot of Asclepias or milkweed planted, because this is what, I call the butterfly garden. So you have to have milkweed in the butterfly garden if you want to attract especially those monarch butterflies. So I did mention earlier that the landscapers were here, did some pruning. Here's another Weigela that they pruned. This is the Weigela Sonic Bloom Pink, and you can see there are a few little reblooms starting. Now this is a new company for us this year, and so we don't really, they don't know what I'm thinking. I would have had them trim this way back. I'm aggressive when it comes to trimming. I'm not afraid to trim. So when they come back and are ready to do another trim on it, I'm going to tell them, go ahead and just take it in half. I like my shrubs shorter and tighter. So that's something that we'll have to learn about each other. They'll have to learn that I am okay with aggressive trimming. Are you an aggressive trimmer, or are you kind of a cautious trimmer, or do you not dare trim at all? Here we have a begonia cherry cordial. Look how vibrant and bright that is. I love the glossy black foliage. It's just so shimmery and shiny. And then those white blooms are just absolutely stunning. I love how that kind of is bringing that red, white, and blue look into this garden. We've got the blue pot, the red flowers, and then of course the white Sunpatiens. And I think that makes a pretty cool look. So what are some of the other plants in this garden? It looks a little messy, and that's sort of intentional in some spots. We have some tall phlox, we have liatris, all plants that are great for the pollinators, for the butterflies. Lots of coneflowers, of course. There was some lupin blooming in here earlier in the season. Look at there, another calla lily that came back. It's just crazy. I do think this part of the garden is a little bit of a microclimate. Sometimes I feel like it can be more of a zone 7 than a 6. And that's because we do have a creek in the backyard, so I think that helps keep it just a little bit warmer perhaps in the winter. We've got some delphinium in there, and with the delphinium, I have it in a tomato cage to help hold it upright, although you can see there's a lot of flopping that went on. I talked to Rod about that, and I'm like, what is wrong with that delphinium? It looks so nice just, a few days ago, and now this was a couple weeks ago I was talking about it. And he said there's a sprinkler head like right here, and every time that sprinkler comes on, it just nails the base of the delphinium. So the delphinium would be a lot more sturdy if the underground sprinkling wasn't hitting it. So great plant, just maybe not the right place in the garden. But I thought, that'd be cool by those tall birdhouses. They could kind of support each other. But yeah, sprinklers, And that might be answering some of your questions too. How does she keep her yard so lush and so green, and the plants just looking so healthy? We do have underground sprinkling. It does run every day, and that's how we're keeping our garden and our grass looking fresh and very green. This here is a firelight hydrangea. We'll talk about this later on the summer when it is in its glory, but this is an absolute stunning specimen. Another question I get a lot is, what are those tall trees that line your yard? Those are actually my neighbor's trees. They have this tree line they planted when they moved in, which was about 5 years before we moved in. And these are arborvitaes, or thuyas. I don't know what variety they planted, but if you're looking to create this natural park looking look in your yard, you could use the North Poles, Spring Groves. There's a lot of different varieties, but I think if it were me and I was redoing this look on the other side, I would use the North Poles because they're fairly skinny. They're about 15 foot tall, and they would give you this wonderful natural hedge privacy fence. Some of you are just getting excited because we are headed back to the Hosta Garden. I know for so many this is your favorite part of the garden tour. And you know, it's our only little bit of shade, and this is where we just have loaded up on hostas. I know I've said this every time I do the video, every time I'm in this corner. I never liked hostas until we started creating this patchwork effect. So if this is the first time you've watched a video of mine and have seen this area of my garden, and you're like, I am not a hosta person, this is a way that maybe you could become a hosta person. Just buy several different colors, textures, and sizes and plant them all together. And that way they all individually stand out and create kind of their own special look, one from the other. I know if you've got all the same kind of hostas, it's boring. But when you can create this patchwork look using the textures and the colors, it creates a really pleasing look. That's the Aurelia Sun King, which I use to kind of break up this area a little bit. You can see it's taller than the hostas, and it does add a nice splash of chartreuse that the hostas, some of them can add that in the garden, but it just adds a nice big bold splash of color that, again, kind of helps break up the colors and textures of the hostas. A painted fern here. I think this is, I don't know if this is a crested surf fern, but as we're heading around the corner, we're getting a little bit more sun into the garden. So you'll notice a transition of the type of plants that we're using. We do have Sunpatiens, again, that line this garden bed, and I love the Sunpatiens because from the house, which is about 200 or so foot away, it just really draws my eye back into this garden space. There's some astilbes that are blooming right now. There's a lot of dicenter or bleeding heart. There's hellebore, which gives us our early season color. You can see we've got some daylilies going on in here. These are actually the Going Bananas daylilies, and these have not been on the market for about 5 years now. Well, I've got some wonderful news for you. We will be having these again this fall. So if this is something you are interested in, check back in probably August or September, and we'll be selling these online on our website, gardencrossings.com. Milk and honey astilbe there. I love astilbe because the flowers are so pretty. There's whites and reds and pinks and a lot of various colors. And astilbe is just kind of a really, I don't know, it's just kind of a cool looking plant, I think, especially in your part shade type gardens. A lot more texture going in here with the hostas. Some of these are the giant hostas. In the back there by that bench, that's the Empress Wu hosta. That's over 6 foot wide and about 4 foot tall. Make sure you have the right hosta for the right location in your garden. You can't just pick one and think it's gonna work. You need to make sure it's the right size for the area you're looking to fill in, because there definitely are some monsters out there that will quickly engulf a garden space if just a little space is all that you have. Heading back to our daylily field, and I say that kind of jokingly, it's not really a field at all. It's the daylily part of the garden. Here we've got the Jolly Good Clematis. I told you, anywhere I can fit a clematis in, I do it. There's some more hydrangeas back in there along with some hostas. This maple tree is giving a lot of shade to the plants that are underneath of it. Coreopsis, Uptick Gold. I think Rod might have just planted those. I don't remember them from before. Some more astilbe, spirea. And here is the daylily field. This was the area of the garden I said, we're gonna just plant just daylilies here. I wanna get all different kinds and see all the different colors when they're all blooming together. And you can see there's a lot of variation. We have not added anything to this in, again, probably 15 years. So a lot of these are old daylily varieties. Many of them are still on the market. But what I think is really interesting is how they all bloom at the same-ish time, but some are a little bit earlier to start and some are a little bit later, so that it kind of really trickles the daylily color for about 3 or so weeks. Now, for those of you who didn't know, and I know there's a lot of new gardeners out there who watch us, the name daylily is very appropriate. These lilies will bloom for 1 day. So if you didn't know that, that's why it's important that you get daylilies that have a lot of branching, a lot of scapes. These are the scapes where there's a lot of buds on there, because you want to have a plant that will give you lots of flowers when a flower especially only blooms for 1 day. Here's some gorgeous Kniphofia. I think this one is Solar Flare. I love Kniphofia in the garden too because they're just a funky, fun flower. I like how they kind of have their spikes. There's reds, there's oranges, there's yellows, a lot of different colors in Kniphofia. But just, I don't know, a really fun, cool plant to add into your garden collection. This is usually a zone 6, so you will want to watch your hardiness zone to see if it would be appropriate for where you're located. So just a little bit of a look back as to where we've been. Actually, I'll just give you the full 360 view of where we've been. I'm in the back corner of the garden here now, and we've got just a little bit before we head back up front. I almost forgot we didn't start up front. So let's keep moving. We've got the Incredible hydrangea. Incredible has extra strong stems with extra large blooms. It really is very incredible. I mean, look at this plant. This thing is huge. Now, Incredible is one of those plants, if the stem or the stem lays on the ground, sometimes it will root itself and create a new plant. So that is why what we're seeing here is probably about 10 foot wide, if not wider, because this plant just kind of keeps creating new little plants all around it, which for the location of the garden we're in, it can have anything it would like to fill in this space, because there's a lot of weeds that hang out back here if we don't have good plant coverage. Here we have the Invincible Spirit hydrangea. This is the original Invincible Spirit. Invincible Spirit was upgraded several years ago now, but I just kept the original in here because I think she's really beautiful. And I really love this look. My chippy outhouse with that Incredible hydrangea and then the pink Invincible Spirit hydrangea. It's such a pretty look. Here's another area where we have a lot of Clematis again, way tucked back in there. I used to garage sale when I had time, when I didn't work all the time, and I'd look for random weird things. This was an old, I don't know, windmill or something, and I thought that will grow a Clematis up it nicely. So back in there we've got the Raguchi and also the Princess Diana Clematis. This one here, this is also an old windmill spinner type thing that the windmill broke off of. And I thought, perfect opportunity to grow some Clematis on it. I usually grow 4 Clematis per support because it has 4 sides, so you might as well plant 4 Clematis. That way if they bloom at different times, you might have something blooming longer. Ruby Spider Daylily, look at that. That is a plant with a ton of buds. Just loaded, and really extra large blooms as well. Primal Scream, if you're looking for a nice orange. Another one that's got really big flowers. And I love how that's planted next to the hardy hibiscus. That deep dark color with that orange looks really stunning. I want to show you not only, maybe your hibiscus have issues, so do mine. There's a lot of bugs that like hibiscus. I don't think I'm seeing anything on it right now, but there's clearly evidence of bugs that have been chewing on these leaves. It really doesn't affect the flowers, so when you're close up it looks a little bit lacy from the chew, but once it starts blooming the flowers are really beautiful. So if I had to and I wanted to, this would be one plant I would probably spray to keep like the beetles and whatever else is going on here off of it, but since I really don't care, we just leave it as is. Here's another Clematis wall. Lots of clematis are grown on here. We've got Ragucci again, which is that purple bell. We've got some Haldine, which is a nice yellow. Patricia Ann Fretwell. And these are all very aggressive clematis varieties. Here are the Alstroemeria. These are zone 7 and 8 Alstroemeria that have come back faithfully for, I think we're on year 4 now. So this is where I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid to test the zones a little bit. Don't have high hopes, but if it works, it's awesome. And here in this case, it's worked really well for me. Wine and Roses Weigela got trimmed up, just nicely shaped. We've got some more Sweet Romance Lavender. This here is a Limelight Hydrangea, and this is going to be gorgeous when it blooms later on in August. More Sweet Romance, and a gorgeous, incredible hydrangea to kind of round out the beginning of this garden. So for those of you that have held on this long, thank you. We're going to go up to the front yard and take a quick peek at the Proven Winner Annuals to see how they are doing. I think you're going to be in for a real treat to see how some of the new vistas are doing, and they're doing awesome. So let's head on up to the front garden. We're going to finish out today's tour at the front of my house where I plant some of the new varieties for 2026. So here we've got the new sweet potato vine. Loving how that is doing. One thing I like about it too is that it's not overly aggressive. Usually by now, a sweet potato vine would be totally taking over the planter and also touching the ground, where this one is staying very well behaved and looks fantastic. We've got the Supertunia Mini Vista Pink Cloud. That's filling in nicely. I'm loving that soft pink color with that white center. I'll give you kind of the full look here of what it's doing. There was only 2 of them planted in this pot, and I think it's really filling out nicely. James Britannia, this was a surprise for me. This is actually not a new variety. There is a new one coming out. I think it's red, but this is an old, like a few years old one. But I was surprised at how well this did in these aqua pots. I've never really grown them before because I just never knew what they do. But wow, that is a lot of great color. This would be something you could use in place of Bacopa if you plant Bacopa. Bacopa's bad because if it dries out, it takes 3 weeks to get a flower again. Where these James Britannia just kind of have continued to bloom all summer. We've got the Super Bells Magic Pink Grapefruit. I love how there's a lot of various colors in one plant. So if you're looking to plant a lot of color, but doing so with just one plant, these nice double little Super Bells are really fantastic. Now there are other plants that were planted in this pot, but you can definitely see the ones that are the most prolific. The Super Bells, the Vista, the Sweet Potato Vine, and the James Britannia really are putting on the most show of color this late here in the season. Another new variety is the Supertunia Vista Cool Jazz. And look how these have filled out. You can't even see that there's 5 individual plants anymore. They've all grown into one giant, massive border. I said in the last video, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be on the sidewalk soon. And absolutely, they are already on the sidewalk by about 6 inches. So they are another nice, aggressive Supertunia, part of that Vista series. And really, any of the plants in the Vista series are perfect for planting in the ground. One plant covers a lot of territory, and I mean, it's worth the money. If you can get one plant to fill out 3 foot of space, that is quite a savings compared to the old seed petunia varieties. In the corner there, we've got Diamond Frost with unplugged So Blue Salvia. And then Rod did plant a perennial in there. That is the Red Lark Delphinium. And that thing just continues to put on flowers. Gorgeous, about 3 foot tall spikes. And yeah, just really a very showy plant. He did also plant a couple of them here in the ground as well. And they're doing quite nicely. These will get actually transplanted out into the back garden after the summer's over. They're just kind of temporary here. He wanted to see what they do. And I don't know. I think they're doing kind of nice. Now, they're really not my color scheme up here at all. So they do feel a little off with other colors going on. But it's a great focal point for us to be able to watch and see what they do over the summer. Hanging baskets are filling in good with the geraniums, and then the super bells, great punch. And then also we did the big leaf vine, and that's just kind of filling in and getting crazy, which is what we were thinking it would do. So it's just kind of a simple, easy hanging basket look. And then we also have the planter I planted special for in this more shadier location with the begonia pegasus. We've got the fireworks fuchsia. We've got more of the grapefruit super bells there. We've got the autumnal fuchsia, which is mostly grown for its foliage, but it does have, let's see if we can show you there, a little flower. So a little bit of flower, but mostly it's for foliage interest. And what else do we got in here? A few begonias. So this year, it's not getting as big as what it has in the years past. So we'll see how big it gets by the end of the season. But it's doing pretty good. I think if I do it again next year, I got to get more flower color. There's a lot of foliage going on in there with not a lot of color. But every year, you know, things go differently. This is a lot of the same plants I've used in the past. So I don't know, different years, different things turn out different ways. Also too, we have our pet koas, and I'm going to do a follow-up video on these because if you notice, they're not blooming a lot, and there's a reason why. So we're going to do a follow-up video. So watch for that in the next few days, because this is going to be something I think you're going to find just absolutely crazy with what we've done with these plants. And I definitely think it's something, if you grow petunias of any type, super petunias, super cales, anything, you're going to watch this video that we're going to be posting here on these as well. More of the cool jazz looking very cool with Bobo hydrangeas. And we are back to where we started with the quick fire hydrangea. For those of you who are still watching, thank you. I appreciate it. This was an extra long garden tour today. There's just so much to show in this season. July is always, I think, one of the most stunning times of the year in the garden, especially with all the hydrangeas blooming. So I think you were in for a real treat today with what you saw. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. If you're new to our channel, I welcome you to subscribe. If there was anything you saw that you thought, I gotta have it, you can head to our website, gardencrossings.com, or you can come to our retail garden center located in Zeeland, Michigan. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.